So today we're going to be doing a Diablo 3 game design panel. I can't tell you how good it feels to actually say that. We've been waiting to tell you all about what we've been working on for a long time. So my name's Jay Wilson. I'm the lead designer of Diablo 3, and with me is Wyatt Ching, who's technical designer on Diablo 3, and Eric Dodds, senior designer, also on Diablo 3. So essentially this panel is all about our game design philosophy for Diablo 3, what our kind of core focus has been. So I'm going to start with a history of Diablo. The original Diablo was really the first of its kind. It was the first kind of action role-playing game. And it really reinvigorated the role-playing game market. Diablo II, obviously, expansion really expanded upon the ideas in the original Diablo. And Diablo III is our next big step. So I'm going to go ahead and, that's just kind of a summary. I'm going to go ahead and get in a little bit down into the details of those. So these are kind of what made each game special. Diablo 1, really one of the first kind of mainstream games to do random items, random dungeons, and just have a lot of replayability through randomness. It was simple, action-based gameplay, and had a big focus on character customization. You know, you could do a lot with your characters, customize them in a lot of different ways, a lot of cool gear. So moving on to Diablo 2. Diablo 2 really expanded on Diablo by adding a lot bigger world, outdoor environments, larger world. They also really advanced in character classes. They focused on kind of much more unique character classes at the time. You know, barbarians and necromancers and Amazons were kind of very unusual, not the kind of thing you normally saw, compared to your average, warrior, rogue, thing like that. And they had a very unique skill tree system, which has really kind of become a bit of the standard for the industry. It was really the original idea of which was based kind of off of RTS tech tree. So this gets us into our Diablo 3 design goals. To summarize, we want to stay true to the Diablo experience, have amazing moment-to-moment action, really be an awesome action game, expand the role-playing game experience and make a better role-playing game than we've ever made before. And then we also have a lot of new systems, most of which we're not talking about today because, we've got to hold some stuff back. But in the coming months, we've got a lot of really big surprises that we're going to show off. So starting at the spirit of Diablo and staying true to the Diablo experience. This is one of our biggest focuses. It's something we've always talked about, but it's also very difficult when you're taking a game like Diablo and Diablo 2. These are games that everyone loves. They have a huge fan base. And the real question is, what exactly do you need to be true to? If you we could just make, Diablo 2 again. And probably a lot of people will be happy with that, but what we really wanted to do was make sure that we made it enough like Diablo that the fans would be satisfied, but also made it original and gave it its own identity so that it would really advance the IP and the game rather than just kind of being a static kind of content update. So we tried to pick the things that we thought were really important, the things that we think, these are really the core of Diablo, and there are these things on the slide right now. Making a replayable role-playing game. That's one of our big focuses. That speaks a lot to randomness, making really powerful heroes engaged in epic scale combat, approachable gameplay, and a cooperative focus. And I'm going to boil down kind of into each one of these, so if I seem like I'm skimming on this page, it's because I go deeper. So replayability, this is really one of the keys to the Diablo series. So one of the things that's not really evident when we showed the gameplay demo this morning is there randomness in Diablo 3 like there was in Diablo 2? And absolutely, yes, there is. We focus on random environments. This video that's playing right now is actually an example of that. This is our DRLG system, which is essentially our system for creating random environments and dungeons and things like that. As you can see, it just scrolled through just tons of different combinations. It can pretty much put together almost an endless number of layouts and different combinations so that every time you visit a dungeon, it's a little different. But we also focused on a lot of other randomness, random monster encounters, random items, big focus, higher difficulty levels. It's something from Diablo 2 and Diablo 1 that we'll definitely want to keep. We may expand, but how we actually do that, we're not going to talk about today. And the last one is random adventures, which is basically a whole new feature that allows us to place random scripted events almost anywhere in the game world. And this is something that really supports kind of our idea of making a better role-playing game, a more interesting role-playing game, and something where the world feels more alive. We really felt like we needed to expand our randomness to be able to encapsulate this new feature. And we cover that a little bit further, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. So the next one is epic heroes, making heroes that are just over the top, crazy, cool, awesome, destructive powers. It's one of our biggest focus. I think it's the thing we're most proud of is as we focused on the Barbarian and the Witch Doctor in their development, what we really wanted to do is make characters that the player wants to be, that fulfill the fantasy of just playing these kind of epically powerful characters. Having really large-scale combat, lots and lots of monsters on screen, having characters that are designed to deal with lots of monsters who are just kind of huge and over the top, making them massively powerful, and not just by giving them just skills that are completely ridiculously overpowerful, but just generally making them feel powerful. Making sure that every impact is huge and has sound that backs it up and effects that make it feel just kind of crazy over the top. Making really strong and unique archetypes, also very important for us. We wanted to make sure that, and I think the Witch Doctor is a great example. One of our new classes. He's essentially, you say Witch Doctor, and you have an expectation of what that will do and what that character will be, and we feel that he lives up and even surpasses that expectation. And we feel like all these things are really a hallmark of Diablo 2. Diablo 2 had awesome characters. They were really powerful. They were really cool and distinctive. We felt like it was something that we could improve upon and make better. So, approachability. This was also one of the things that we talked a lot about in making Diablo 3. It speaks a lot to why Diablo 3 is an isometric game played from overhead view, like Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. We have a saying, if you can click a mouse, you can play Diablo. And we really wanted to maintain that. So isometric gameplay, it's why we didn't make a first-person game. We didn't even explore the idea. We were like, oh, it's Diablo. It's going to be overhead. It's going to be awesome. So simple to learn. One of the things we really wanted to focus on was increasing the depth of the game. A lot of the kind of control improvements and combat changes that we've made really focus on that. And a real smooth difficulty curve. This is something that Diablo 2 especially did very right. The early game in Diablo 2 is very easy to get into. It's not too challenging. But as you get into Nightmare difficulty and Hell difficulty, you ramp the game up until it becomes a very challenging game. And that kind of very smooth difficulty curve that allows people to kind of play through the whole game, even if they're kind of a casual user, that's something we definitely wanted to maintain. So the next thing in staying true to the Diablo series is cooperative play. Competitive play always seems to get the focus when you talk about multiplayer games, and certainly competitive play is awesome. We definitely will have some form of competitive play. We're just not talking about it yet, but cooperative play is first and foremost our focus, and we feel a real key to why the Diablo series has done very well. Being able to play on Battle.net, being able to join your friends at any time. We have a lot of improvements to Battle.net. We have a whole new version of Battle.net that's going to premiere with StarCraft 2. You could be sure that everything that StarCraft 2 uses, we will try to take advantage of, and a whole bunch of other features as well. The new Battle.net is really awesome. And what it supports is easy communication, easy connection with other players, being able to matchmake, basically do all the things that you would want to do to be able to get online, find your friends, get into games with them quickly, and have a really great time. So, and also just more massive cooperative battles and game that really focuses and supports that. So obviously on the multiplayer side, I'm just kind of getting into it a little bit. You know, BattleNet, as I said, is not quite ready for prime time, but it's really awesome, and more on that in the coming months. So that gets us into kind of the next big point, which is making Diablo 3 a better action game. So here's a short video. It just shows off some of the different skills that some of the different hero classes use. So this is Witch Doctor using Horrify and Locust Swarm. We had Cleave, which is one of the barbarian abilities. Is a big sweeping, attack that damages everything in front of them. So it's really been our goal to make just incredibly kick-ass player characters. Just people that, again, you really want to play that do awesome stuff. And through that, we felt like we needed to do a lot of improvements to just the core gameplay. Because as I said before, improved controls. We call less spam and more depth. And that's not to say that you won't break some mice playing Diablo 3. You will. It's a mouse killer. But we're trying to get it, not quite as carpal tunnel as Diablo 2. Allow you to, get a greater amount of skill diversity. And a new breed of monster, cooler monster design. So getting into the control improvements, one of the first things we added was the hotbar. So the hotbar really promotes what we call skills over potion use. In Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, the primary focus for kind of getting out of any problem was potions. If you ran into a monster that was really tough, you just smack the potion button until you win. We didn't feel that really makes for incredibly compelling combat. It's kind of a battle of attrition, and that's not the most fun way to play a game. We really wanted the player to use a lot more diverse skills. So what the hotbar does is allows the player to just fire off any number of skills very quickly. And because it occupies the same space that the belt used to occupy, it's not any more complex than the Diablo 2 UI. It's actually a lot easier because now you don't have to use kind of the complex F keys that Diablo 2 did. We don't use those anymore to switch skills because you can access all your skills very easily on the hotbar, and you don't want for kind of a separate skill selection. We also, through the mouse wheel, you can just kind of, or tab key, you could swap between a couple skills on the mouse wheel. So it makes the game, you can still just kind of one skill through it, through the single player game, especially through normal difficulty. That's part of keeping the difficulty curve smooth. But as you get deeper into the game, as you get into harder challenges, you'll want to use kind of a more diverse set of skills, escape skills, attack skills, buffs. All of those things are way easier to use. So it also just is it's a cleaner UI. All the kind of advanced features are right there and available to every player, not just the people who figure out how kind of some of the more arcane functions work. It promotes things like class-specific tactics. Now we can see, previously the answer to a barbarian being overwhelmed by an enemy was potion. And a Witch Doctor being overwhelmed by an enemy is potion. Now the Witch Doctor can horrify his enemies, and the Barbarian can stun them. The Barbarian's tougher than his enemy, so he can just blast through a fight, whereas the Witch Doctor can use pets to distract enemies. It makes for a much more interesting dynamic combat without really pulling away from the Diablo feel. It's still really fast-paced and really easy to get into, and just all about owning a big pile of monsters. And as we say, better gameplay, less carpal tunnel. So one of the next things we did was, if we're going to get rid of the potion belt, and we haven't got rid of potions, they're still there, they're just not nearly as core a part of the game. We really needed a new health system. We experimented with a lot of different ideas along these lines. If those of you are familiar with Halo, we actually tried a Halo kind of shield system with health where it would regen very quickly. That didn't really give us the effect we wanted because it caused players to actually leave combat to try and recover health, and that's really something we never wanted. We always want the player moving forward. We want to keep the pace of the game fast. We also didn't want to adopt anything like a WoW system where after a fight you stop and drink, because again, it slows down the pace of the game. We really view Diablo as an extremely fast-paced, active game. So little to no downtime was one of our main goals. So the great thing about the health globe system is because these are basically objects that drop off of monsters when you kill them, It encourages the player to engage in conflict. If I'm low on health, I want to fight monsters. If I'm high on health, I want to fight monsters. And it promotes something that we call positional gameplay, which is really one of the best kinds of gameplay you can get in the Diablo series. And the idea is that based upon the type of attack you're using, and based upon what kind of character you're playing and where you are and what kind of monster you're fighting, where you are is very important. And what the health globes do is really promote the player to go someplace they don't want to go, which is great gameplay. It's like, oh, I need that thing to get health back, but I got to go get past like 10 monsters to do it. And that's really exciting. So the other thing is that we talked a lot about, like we do with all systems, how does this system interact with cooperative play? There's not a system that goes in the game that we don't talk about cooperative play. And one of the cool things about this system is how we set it up was if you pick up a health globe, any of your friends who are nearby will receive the same benefit you do. And the cool thing about that is that now it's good for you to be near one another. We didn't want, say, the barbarian who's up front to be getting all the health, and the witch doctor in back going, hey man, I'm dying up here. And now the witch doctor is actually, not only is he the cool front man, but he's a de facto healer as well. And same thing, if the witch doctor has access to a health globe, he can actually help out his buddy. And that kind of cool cooperative play is something we really focus on. So the last kind of part of our big action section is monsters and what kind of cool monsters we're going to make and how we're going to improve on them. We really wanted to, certainly Diablo 3 is filled with all kinds of just monsters that swarm and get crushed in large numbers, which is awesome. But we also wanted to create kind of more interesting, more complex monsters. And the Berserker is a great example of this. He's very aggressive, very tough monster. And he's got this kind of massive charged up attack. Whenever he swings his big mace and it gets, that kind of fiery effect on him, if he connects with that, it does just an enormous amount of damage. But the cool thing is if you can pull away from him, then he'll hit the ground and he'll be stuck, and then you've got a few seconds just to pound on him. And the idea is, again, positional gameplay. We want the player to not just walk forward and click madly. We want them to occasionally go, hey, I'm going to step back from this guy and then move back in. That kind of dynamic movement just makes combat way more fun and way more interesting. So the Skeletal Shield Bearer is kind of one of our next one. And the thing we love about this guy is he shows off how monsters can have great synergy with one another. This guy's really slow, but he's also really tough. That shield he has can just absorb a monstrous amount of damage. But the cool thing is that if you can destroy it or subvert it in some way, you can negate it. If you can get that shield down, he's actually not very tough at all. So he tends to accompany ranged units or casters where, those guys will just be pumping mad damage past those shield bearers, and you've got to deal with these guys up front. But the cool thing is if you can do something like like stun them, or otherwise, horrify them. If you do like a fear skill, that shield drops, and then you just one-shot them and they're gone. So really cool creature that is really fun to play against. So the next slide is talks about better role-playing games. So this is kind of our last big kind of thing that we're talking about today, and one of the things we really wanted to focus on with the Diablo series. So the idea was we really wanted to improve the story, make a better story, but not lose the feeling that Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 had. And other games that we've made, like World of Warcraft have, where the story is kind of an opt-in. If you are not interested in the story, we're not going to subject you to like giant dialogue trees or, mountains of text. You can go up, tap your quest giver and get going and, have a great time. But if you are interested in the story, then it's there for you. We wanted to really improve the feeling that as you move through the world has a focus. There's a lot going on in it. It's not just kind of a container for monsters. So bring the world to life, bring, NPC interaction and cool events, really cool quests. We've learned a lot since making Diablo 2 about quest design and about story, and we're trying to put all those things into Diablo 3. So, and one of the ways we're going to accomplish that is through a new system that we call Adventures. Adventures are really an expansion on a lot of the randomness from Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. And what they allow us to do is place a scripted event almost anywhere in the game world. So this example is, as it's kind of flipping through, it's kind of showing a bunch of different examples. This could be a particular area in the outdoor world that you could come across. And one of the times you could go there, it could be an old abandoned house that you could explore. Maybe there's something in it. There could be, crazy undead guys who have infested the house, and maybe a story about the family that used to live there. You could come across a clearing where an evil cult is doing a summoning ritual and pulling some kind of crazy demon out. A caravan that needs protecting. Maybe they need you to cover them for a short period of time while a bunch of enemies come in, or maybe they need you to help them reach the nearest town. It could be an enemy camp with a boss in it. It also could just be a clearing. There could be just some randomly placed monsters there, and so that the idea is that every time you go through the game, we want you to see something a little different or in a different place, a different combination. So it keeps that kind of random nature of the game that makes it so replayable and so fun to just keep coming back to. So the next one is really the conversation system, which we showed in the demo. The fact that the characters really interact with one another when when you encounter them in the world. You get to see both, as we have here, Deckard Cain and the Barbarian interact. The Barbarian has a voice. This is something that was really important to us, that our characters have a voice, be able to tell the story, be able to drive the story forward. We have another panel that's going to be playing tomorrow. Two, actually. One that focuses on world lore and environment, one that focuses on characters. Character one talks a lot more about like how we're focusing on characters and voice and giving the players voice. So I don't want to steal the thunder of that panel, so I'll go too much into that. But it's a big focus of us to kind of bring these NPCs to life and give the player a voice in the story and make a much more engaging story than the previous games. So that brings us to the summary, the end of this panel. So our primary kind of goals, remaining true to the universe gameplay of the Diablo series, making a deeper action game without sacrificing the ease of play and the fast nature of Diablo play, improving upon the story, RPG elements of the series. Those are all really important to us. As I said, there's also a bunch of features that are really cool that we're going to be announcing in the coming months as well. So that leaves us to questions, and hopefully we have enough time to take a good amount of those.
What will be the typical group size for Diablo 3 that you will be supporting? Will it be the classic 5-person groups, or 40, or even 100?
Well, with group size, it's not so much a technical restriction for us. We can support a lot of players on the technical side. In some ways, it's actually kind of easier to support more players, but from a gameplay side, we find that smaller groups actually tend to work better because of the nature of the camera. Once you get more than 4 or 5 people on screen, it really gets kind of chaotic. So we haven't decided a final number, but we tend to focus players. We want to focus players towards the best experience, and so we'll probably focus on about that number, about 4, maybe 5.
Are you going to increase the inventory size in contrast to Diablo 2?
The question is, are we going to increase the inventory size? We haven't settled on a final inventory size, but I can say that we are going to make a lot of improvements to the inventory system. We're going to make it a lot easier for you to trade items between your characters and with other players. As far as inventory size, we'll probably pick whatever is most appropriate for kind of gameplay, but we haven't settled on kind of a final size. Inventory doesn't work exactly the same as Diablo 2. We're not using the kind of grid. We're doing a one-off inventory, so it's hard to even compare the sizes.
First, thank you for the videos. They were just awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know if you had any thought on that. If you wanted to attract Diablo 2 players, maybe, or, World of Warcraft players, or, people that played Diablo 2, then World of Warcraft, or just all of them?
So if I understand the question correctly, are we trying to specifically attract Diablo 2 versus World of Warcraft players, or both?
Yeah. Do you have a particular... as you said.
Okay. Not really. I mean, we want to make a game for Diablo players and people who love Diablo. We think Diablo is a great game. It certainly is, was hugely successful. So we don't worry about it finding an audience. As far as World of Warcraft players, we don't really worry about World of Warcraft either. We think it'll do just great, and continue to do wonderful. We're World of Warcraft players as well as Diablo players. We think there's plenty of room for both. So no, we don't have any particular intent to get one versus the other. We just try to make a great game.
Will the 7 classes be kept? Will you add new classes?
Well, we've already added a new class, the Witch Doctor, obviously. The classes from Diablo 2, we don't have a plan to specifically carry them over. We're kind of doing a fresh start on the classes. And the final number we haven't nailed. We want to support a large number of classes, do several classes, but we haven't figured out exactly how many that's going to be yet. But we're not going to specifically try and bring back all the 7 classes from Diablo 2. It's not really a goal for us right now.
While watching the introduction video, it seemed like the Barbarian's mana sphere was green. Are you going to implement some sort of energy or rage system for different sort of classes, or all mana?
We're really interested in exploring kind of some alternate gameplay systems for some of the other classes, but we don't have any specific plans at this time.
The hardcore modus, your deeds will be remembered. Do you plan to integrate this also in Diablo 3?
Sorry, I don't understand the
version where you play, once you die, your character is dead.
Oh,
and stays dead.
hardcore
Yeah.
mode. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. We haven't actually decided whether we're going to do a hardcore mode or not. I don't see why we wouldn't. It's kind of a decision we don't have to make till close to the end, but lots of people loved hardcore mode. I can't see why we wouldn't support that feature, but we haven't specifically. I'm basically going to leave the caveat, well, we might not, but we probably will.
Hi. My question's about loot. In Diablo 2, one of the problems was when you killed a boss, all the loot would drop on the floor and the person with the fastest connection would pretty much grab it all and then run off. Is there anything you're planning to implement to make sure that loot's given evenly through the group if you're playing with more than one person?
That really sucked. I'm going to let Wyatt take that one because he worked on a good system for us for that.
Yeah, I played a lot of Diablo 2 as well, so I know like some people really liked it and some people didn't. We spent a lot of time thinking about what we wanted to do. In Diablo 3, when you kill the boss, the loot drops multiple times, once per player, and they'll each see the loot that was generated for them.
Will we be able to reset the skills tree?
Oh, whether you'll be able to respec. Well, let's see. How do I answer that question? We're not really talking about skill systems or trees or what we're going to end up doing for player spec. But I will go ahead and say I think it's a bad idea to not give some kind of capacity to respec your character. But we don't have any specifics about anything like that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Would you say that the Witch Doctor was a replacement or a spiritual successor to the Necromancer class? Because they had quite similar class mechanics, like a corpse explosion style, curses, and the pet abilities.
We don't really view the Witch Doctor as a replacement for the Necromancer. The Necromancer is a really, really cool character. So cool that he's, when we thought about him as a class, we've always kind of gone, can we actually improve upon him? Which is one of the things that, we really try to focus on with each character class. And but for the Witch Doctor, no. I mean, if we ever decided to make a Necromancer, the Witch Doctor wouldn't prohibit us doing something like that.
Hi, I'm Medieval Dragon from BlizzPlanet.com and DiabloFans.com.
Hello.
Thanks asked in the forum, how does the gear system differ from Diablo 2?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Sure.
How does the gear system differ from Diablo 2?
The gear system, like items and things like that?
Correct.
Well, we have a whole bunch of new kind of features for items that we want to do, but the core system for items is not really drastically changed. We feel like Diablo 2, probably one of the best things about Diablo 2 was how they handled items, how they handled drops, rewards. The structure there is so good that really that's been something we've wanted to maintain and find improvements for. So there's lots of other ways that you're going to be able to make items better and new ways to kind of recover items. As Wyatt mentioned, we want to make it more friendly in cooperative games, but those features are kind of not finalized, and so we'll be discussing them in the future.
Yeah, in Diablo 2 you got a lot of overpowered people in the BattleNet. What are you going to prevent that from happening in Diablo 3?
Can you be more specific?
About the cheats, people that logged on to BattleNet and came on with overpowered people.
Well, I can't talk about specifics at this time because a lot of that is still in production. But the new version of BattleNet, cheats and being able to stop, hacks and things like that, is a huge focus. And the security measures we already have in place are much, much stronger. Being able to prevent cheats is one of our biggest focus, and it's something that we really want to make sure, because we realize, as much as you do, that it really hurts the community when stuff like that happens.
Hello. I would like to know if you were going to keep all the secret events that were in Diablo 2. For example, you could use a scroll to get to a special level in Diablo 2. So I'd like to know if you kept this thing in Diablo 3.
Like, are we going to have secrets in Diablo 3?
Yeah, that you not talk about, you have to discover by yourself when you're playing.
Yeah, just, super secret stuff. That's a secret.
Hi, my question was whether single player and cooperative was going to be balanced. Like, I know in World of Warcraft there are some things that can only be tackled by a large group. So is it going to be the same way in Diablo, or can everything be tackled by single player?
I think another way to look at that question is, are there rewards? That's often what people are concerned about, that can only be achieved in large groups. I can definitely say, the game experience is obviously going to be different when you're cooperative, just by its very nature, but there is no item currently planned that drops for groups only. Anything that can drop for a group, you could very well also get by yourself.
Since 2001, with the release of Lords of Destruction, we haven't had much news. What's been going on?
We've been working. The development of a Blizzard product is sometimes a long affair, and certainly what we've been working on is trying to establish a game that we know is worthy of being a Blizzard game, worthy of our fans, and looks awesome, plays awesome, and this is how long it took us to be ready.
Hi, I really like the option to choose a male and female character. I'm wondering if they'll have different attributes, or will it just be the same skin for a different class?
No, there won't be any differences other than visual appearance. It's pretty tough to take gender and do one class slightly different than the other. If there's any kind of even perceived imbalance in the classes, then we're seen to favor one gender or the other, and so we don't want that to happen. So no, it's primarily an aesthetic choice.
Hello. I wanted to know if the system requirements of Diablo 3 will be very high, if a computer that runs World of Warcraft can run it perfectly, and maybe a little hint if you will use DirectX 10 or still DirectX 9, for example.
Well, we haven't settled on our system specs yet, but it's always Blizzard's goal to support a very broad set of systems. I can tell you that I couldn't tell you whether it could run on a WoW system or not. That's a broad set of systems, but we do want to support as low a system requirements as we can. We don't make super high-end games. It's not our focus. And also, I forgot exactly. Your DirectX 10. No, we don't. I will say we don't require DirectX 10 or, at this time, and I don't think we will at any time.
My question is, do you plan on creating some map editor for D3? I know I do like.
And the question is a map editor? Are we planning a map editor? We have not nailed any kind of specifics about mod development or map editors or anything like that. What I will say is that what we found is that the Diablo series in general and our game specifically are not very friendly to mod development, mainly because of the random nature of the game. It's pretty complex to get content into it, and so as a result, it's not been a big focus for us. But we haven't really decided on whether we're going to do anything like that at this time.
In Diablo 2, there were rune words. Will you be keeping and maybe expanding this system?
No comment at this time.
All right, that concludes our questions and answers session for this panel. Thank you very much to Jay, Wyatt, and Eric.